Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Self-Starters. I'm Kieran Naidu. Let's talk about our guest on the podcast today. I have Natasha Sideris. We all know her, we all love her. If you're confused, it's probably because you know her by her nickname, Tasha. Yep, that's the exact one. Tasha, as in the Queen of Brunch. Can I just say, when I started the podcast, one of the first names I put down on my wish list of people I wanted to speak to was Tasha. Why? Well, the running joke between me and my friends is that I was responsible for the same store growth in the Morningside Tashas because I just couldn't stop going there. Well, let me tell you, I mentioned that in the podcast, and there was so much more that I wanted to find out when I landed this interview. Why has she moved to Dubai? What was the relationship like with famous brands? How does she go about cultivating such a strong brand, and how is she going to take that global? Needless to say, I got all of those answers and so much more. Tasha is not just a motivated, hard-working entrepreneur. She's also one of the most down-to-earth and nicest people you will ever meet. So much great perspective comes out of this interview. It's definitely one of my favorites. And I guess this flies in the face of don't meet people that you look up to, because sometimes it can be disappointing, because through my chat with Tasha, it was anything but. So I hope you enjoy. This is the Self-Starters, a place where we learn how to turn our ideas into successful action. And because you're listening, you have no excuse not to get started on your idea right this very moment. Unless you just want to finish listening to Natasha first. Firstly, Natasha, thank you so much for the time to chat today. I really, really appreciate it. I think I speak for everyone in South Africa when I say Tasha's is a household name. If anyone ever thinks of going somewhere to eat, specifically brunch, Tasha's is the first place that comes up. But I'd love to reflect back on a time where Tasha's wasn't the household name that it was.
Sure.
I think it's hard for most of us to even think back to a time. But where did this concept for Tasha's originate?
You'll be surprised to know how long ago that was. 17 years ago. So Tasha's is 17 years old, and for me, it's almost like we're starting from scratch, and every sort of milestone that we achieve and every new journey and adventure that we go on, it's almost like we're starting the business from the beginning. And that's really where we are now, because we're going on this global expansion plan. But if I have to take you back 17 years ago, I used to own a coffee shop in Bedfordview that was part of another franchise, Nino's actually. Mm-hmm. And one day I was driving around and thought, there's this huge gap in South Africa. Everything was sort of very high-end restaurants and super themed. And then there were mass chains, very big groups, the likes of Mug and Bean, the likes of Juicy Lucy, lots of multiple locations. And there was nothing that was similar to, and I always talk about, the Australian cafe culture in South Africa. So I drove past the location in Rivonia and thought, well, this is a perfect place for me to try out this experiment. I never knew it was going to be the success that it was. In fact, my intention was to open this cafe and then to go back and continue my studies, because I studied psychology, and the intention was to continue that. So I saw this location, pitched my idea to the landlords and said, this is what I want to do, and managed to secure the site. Needless to say, I didn't go back and study because there was just no time. And thankfully, Tashas was a rip-roaring success from the day we started. And we've been extremely blessed along that journey and throughout our 17 years. So I opened the first cafe, ran it every single day from open to close. In fact, I cooked and developed all of the food on our menus up until store number 10.
Sure.
So, and I only got chefs in after store number 10, after I realized, listen, there's no ways that I can carry on doing all of this plus running the stores. But really ran Tasha's Athol Square day and night, never took a day off for the first year, just to make sure that it was a success. And then after that, I took my existing cafe that I had in Bedfordview and converted that into a Tasha's. That was 2 years later. And then Famous Brands approached me. Kevin Hedderwick was a really good customer of the Tasha's brand. And he said, listen, what do you want to do with this brand? I said, I want to grow it, but I don't really want to franchise. I had no money. Don't forget that I started this business with zero funds. So I had to go to unsavory characters to get the money that I needed. And I'm not embarrassed to say I had to go to loan sharks pay exorbitant interest rates. So I didn't really have the money to grow the business. And Kevin said, listen, why don't you sell us 51% of your business and let's grow on this expansion. So I said, I'm happy to do it only if we don't open too many restaurants. I want this to be bespoke. I want it to be well curated, and I don't want the market to be oversaturated. We had many back and forths. I think Kevin had aspirations for 40, 50, and I had always said we'd stop at 20. We now have 16 in South Africa. We're opening our 17th store in Linwood this year, August. And we'll probably stop at about 20, where I said we'd be. We'll open another 3 or 4, maybe 2022, 20 or 22 units we'll get to. But it's been, I suppose now when I'm talking about this, I should write a book. It's been an incredible journey of a lot of ups and downs. I then sold 51 to Famous Brands, who obviously is more of a corporate company, and has a lot of mass brands that they roll out, and hats off to them. They do a fantastic job with those brands. But Tasha's was sort of an unlikely partnership, although it worked extremely well. I learned a lot from them. Don't forget, I'm an entrepreneur, and I love people, and I love food, and I love interiors, but I'm certainly not corporate, and I hate process with a burning passion. I understand that there's a need for it. Don't love numbers, don't love putting together business plans. But I learned all of that through my relationship with Famous Brands. So that was, that took up a good chunk of time, 12 years, and we grew the business substantially. I then decided that I wanted to take the business international, because I realized that the market had reached saturation in South Africa, only because I didn't want to open that many. I wanted Tashas to still be special. And I think that's why we're around 17 years later, because you can't find us on every corner. And because we're a small amount of restaurants, we're able to really look after them, innovate, and craft them. So I think that's been one of the reasons for our success. And then I decided to move to Dubai and start on this journey here. And I've been here for 8 years, formally emigrated 6 years ago. So my brother / business partner looks after South Africa, and I come to SA when my allowance is, because you're only allowed to be in South Africa for 3 months a year if you've immigrated. And I'm still very involved in the South African business. So albeit from afar, and when I'm there, I land, let's say on a Sunday, and I work flat out for 2 to 3 weeks. I'm on it. But yes, it's been a fantastic journey so far. Just super exhausting, and you need to be committed. It is you have to have a burning passion as a founder,
And I remember reading somewhere that you mentioned that you continue to do things in the business until you reach a point where you physically just cannot do it anymore, and only then do you hand it over.
Yeah, I read a book. It's called Blitzscaling, and I think it's by Reid Hoffman, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the things that they did with Airbnb is, Airbnb, the guys who started it, used to take their own photos of the accommodation themselves, and they used to go and place the decor in the apartments that they were renting themselves. If you look at that business today, it's a global business. It's got reach all over the world. They obviously can't do that anymore. But one of the things that they said was, do it until you can't do it anymore. And the penny dropped for me, because that's really how I've run my business. I'm doing everything that I possibly can while I can still do it, until it gets so big that I'll have to hand that task over to someone else. My team will tell you that I don't hand over any tasks, and I meddle in everything.
And I think it's that, in combination with the careful curation that you've had over the years. Like I love what you say about, you see 20 stores in South Africa for Tasha's at a maximum. Yeah. A lot of my friends and I have discussed over time, and I won't mention names, but other fast food franchises that have just expanded way too fast in South Africa. And what you see as a consumer is 200 stores go up, and then a year later, 60 of those stores close.
Well, and I suppose, Kieran, it's got to do with, what are you in the game for? Exactly. So are you in the game for a hit and run, and to make a quick buck and open as many stores as you can and then list or exit? Or are you in the business, of course, to make money, but are you in the business for a love and passion for what you do, and you want to make sure that you're delivering the best quality product and you're looking after your team and you're selling it in these amazing environments? I think it comes down to, what do you want? And for me, what I want is to make money, but obviously to leave a legacy, to positively affect as many people as I can. And it's not just about a quick buck. If it was, I would have developed a brand that I wasn't passionate about, and I would have just rolled out 1,000 stores, and who cares? It's not really.
And when you were happy, you could have gotten rid of the other 49% that you had, and you could have stayed in the famous brand stable.
Exactly.
And talk to me about the choice to go to the Middle East. Why the Middle East specifically in terms of your next step for global expansion?
Okay, so we had hit sort of our glass ceiling, and we were looking at other places to expand to other countries. We'd been approached by Australia, the United States, the UK, and the Middle East. For me, the non-starters were Australia and America. Too far, different time zone, would have required me to move there. And don't forget, in the early days that I used to commute between Dubai and South Africa. So, going to Australia, you need to move there if you're going to run a business there. Not like you can just flit in and out. Same for America. And you can't deal with issues on the same time zone. If computer systems are down, or something's happened in the kitchen, or customers are complaining, Dubai, same time zone, 2 hours actually ahead. If you've got a problem in the restaurant for breakfast, you can be at that restaurant in the evening to sort it out. UK, I was very scared of, because I hadn't left South Africa and I hadn't played on an international field. And the barriers to entry in the UK were difficult and continue to be extremely difficult. I think if any restaurateur thinks that they're going to go into the UK and they're going to go into the UK market with arrogance, and they think, well, it's going to be easy just because we're successful here, there, and everywhere, is making a big mistake. Rentals are high, major issues with staff, very, very high barriers to entry. They've got a completely different way of running the labor system. It's tough. I was just nervous to go into the UK. And for me, Dubai just made the most sense. Same time zone. You'll be surprised. It's a very similar culture to South Africa. And that's why there's so many South African expats here, because when you come, despite the heat now, June, July, August, that I think the Dubai is closer to the sun. I saw that meme. Did you see it? There's the earth, and here's the sun, and there's Dubai. Right. It's hot when it's hot. But other than that, it's a mall culture. It's a driving culture. The local Emiratis are extremely warm and hospitable. They welcome expats. I've been so well received. Yeah, I feel like Dubai is my home, really. And obviously South Africa will always be in my heart, and I love it, and I'm always going to go back to it because it's the birthplace of everything, and it's where I grew up. But I can't say that Dubai hasn't been certainly at least a second home in many, many respects, and becoming my permanent home.
And talk to me about the success of the brand to this point in Dubai.
So we've got 8 stores in Dubai. First store is 8 years old. 9 stores in Dubai. First store is 8 years old. We've got 6 Tashas. We have a flamingo room by Tashas, which is a more high-end brand. We have a Greek restaurant called Avli in the heart of the DIFC, the financial district. And we have a bar that's made it into top 50 bars in the world called the Galaxy Bar. We've had an extremely high success rate. And when you talk about Tasha being a household name in South Africa, it is equally a household name here. And people think that it's a homegrown concept from here.
That really is a true success story. If people think
they really do think it's homegrown. Listen, a big part of that is when I came here, I spent a lot of time here in the opening. So I was here for 6 months again, open to close, open to close, open to close. And then I'd only go back to South Africa for short periods of time. And people got to recognize me and know me. So I think that's been a big thing. Dubai is super competitive. When I say competitive, I mean super competitive. You name any brand, you name any concept, people are coming up with new ideas. The local young entrepreneurs are coming up with homegrown brands. So you've got to be on it. So the fact that we are still relevant, opening stores and still in high demand with landlords, it makes me extremely proud. It's a testament to the team and the actual concept. or concept, because we've got a few now.
In Dubai, opulence is almost expected.
Yeah.
It's excellent quality, generous quantities. It's everything that the Tasha's brand in South Africa is synonymous with. How have you then managed to differentiate yourself? I know you've been there and you've put in lots of blood, sweat, and tears, but beyond that, what's been the intentional way in which you've positioned the brand?
Look, I think in Dubai, lots of people are beautiful interiors. I think one of the differentiating factors is we don't have a lot of mise en place in our restaurants, and that applies in South Africa as well. In other words, we don't have a lot of, for the non-foodies here, a lot of prep. Everything's made on order. We source the best ingredients. We're not the cheapest, but we're also not expensive. We give value for money. And I think the other differentiator has been our staff retention. So there's a high turnaround of staff in the UAE, and we have managed to keep staff members from the day we've started. In fact, we've brought South African members over who've been with me for 10, 12, 15 years. And that you cannot discount the value of people. And we've just got this amazing team. And I think that's been definitely one of the key components and differentiators. And then, of course, we keep innovating, but we stay true to who we are. We don't over-innovate, because there's a danger here as well in Dubai of over-innovating, because you're constantly checking what your neighbors are doing, and then there's a lot of copycat habits happening, and I think you've got to be confident in your concept. So I think that's also been one of our successes here.
And I love the fact that you mentioned the long tenure of your employees, because again, I read a story about how you had someone who was working with you, I think in your first Tasha's in the Scullery, who has now come across to Dubai and is managing one of your stores.
It's funny that you brought it up, because I have just sent Precious a picture of her and the other team members at Athol Square sitting around a table. Now, we're talking 17 years ago.
That's incredible.
And she said, please don't show the photo to anyone. So I said, I'm gonna put it on TV. Anyway, Precious started with me as a scullery. She then moved up in the ranks and started working in the different departments in the kitchen, came out of the kitchen, worked in the bar, from a bar to a runner, from a runner to a waitress. She is now not only the manager of one of my busiest restaurants in Dubai, she's the general manager. She is the GM. I liken that to my franchisee. She runs the business from start to finish. And for me, that gives me huge pride. I mean, I went around to the restaurants the other day to give awards for long service and star performers. I almost don't know where to start. I've got people who've been with me for 12 years, 15 years, 16 years, 15 years. It just, and then the new guys that have joined are all 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
And this is in an industry that is renowned for its turnaround or turnover of staff.
Very high staff turnover. Listen, for me, you got to look after your staff, and it's got to be done in an authentic and sincere way. And you also want to make sure that you are teaching people. It's not all about money. I think a lot of people make that mistake. They think, we'll pay more and we'll get a better quality of staff member or a more experienced staff member. Doesn't always count with money. Of course, you got to look after people in terms of money, but a big part is, are you investing in your people? Do they feel heard? Have they got an open communication with whoever the higher ranks are, and is there potential for growth?
And maybe speak to how that translates to the levels of service employees give customers, because I imagine if you have staff members who don't just have a long tenure, but the brand resonates with them, there's a sense of family.
Yes,
they take customer issues as if it was their own business that that is at fault, as opposed to thinking, well, this is just my place of employment, I'm just going to do the bare minimum. Talk to me, are there some examples where you've looked at your employees going above and beyond for a customer and you've thought, wow?
So many. We've got Enoch from Tasha's in Bed Review the other day. A customer was distressed. I think some guys were following her, and he saw that some guys were following her into Woolies, and he went and took her and said, listen, come to Tasha's, sit down, let these people leave. I can see that you're stressed about it. Bought her a coffee. And then I got an email to say, your manager is just unbelievable. There's so many examples of the way we treat our kids, or the way our staff treat kids that come into the restaurant, or elderly people. There's also a sense of empowerment, which is important. And I think because we have those things, that definitely filters down to customer experience.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I think when you come to a Tasha, you're not just coming to a restaurant, you're coming to your second home, your home away from home. We had a lady from Hyde Park who was going through a rough time and sent us a mail to say that if she didn't have Tasha's, she didn't know what she would do, because she comes there and the staff recognize her and she feels loved and she feels respected. And when she leaves there, she gets a certain sense of happiness and fulfillment. That's what life's about, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's how much you can affect people in a positive way. And thankfully, we do get it wrong. Sometimes we employ people who don't have hospitality inbred in them. But we have been very lucky that for the majority of staff, they love what they do and they love to be working in our spaces. So all around, very, very blessed.
And it's with a foundation and a bedrock like that I'm so excited to hear about the new concepts that are coming out in the years to come. Maybe share a bit about that. What can people expect from the Tashas Group over the next 2 or 3 years?
Okay, so when we were with Famous Brands, obviously we had the one brand Tasha's, and I had developed a Flamingo Room, which is more of an elevated dining with a retail space called Collective Africa. We've recently partnered with Collective Africa, and we'll be opening, as we open more Flamingo Rooms, we'll be opening more Collectives. That's a different angle for us because it is retail, but will be run by the founders, Nikki and Billy Gregg. And our partnership will entail just leaning on us for support and for operations. I then have Avli, of course, which is my Greek restaurant. I have the bar, Galaxy Bar. I always say for my sins because I used to love to party, and now I own a bar. So when I first opened that, I had to stay there till 4 a.m. to make sure everything was okay, and I used to want to cry. We are opening a Flamingo Room in Saudi, and on top of the Flamingo Room, we are creating an experience called the African Lounge, which will be a high tea experience for the most of the day. Menu is being developed by a young South African chef called Jabir Moses, who's come over from Cape Town, who's doing an unbelievable job, and he'll be developing for the evenings a whole Afro fusion type of tapas menu for there. So that's a completely different brand. It's called the African Lounge. We are then developing we're building a Flamingo Room in Abu Dhabi, and we are building a bar at the back, which will be very much the same as Galaxy Bar, called Af Rouge. I'm opening a beach restaurant called Bungalow 34 on the Pearl Island here in Dubai. And that'll open end of this year. And then finally, something that I'm very, very excited about is we're opening a luxury fast food called Nala. And it's going to bring a lot of the heart and soul from Africa. But what we are saying is, I don't understand why a lot of fast food has to taste like bubble gum or like cardboard rather, and especially when it's healthy. We want to bring really a Tasha's quality product to the market and be able to serve it in under 8 minutes. Limited menu, breakfast, lunch, dinner, in and out, quick service.
2 questions. Where are you getting the ideas for all these different concepts? Or maybe 3 questions. How are you finding the time? And then I think the last question is, why all of them now? And the spacing of it seems quite rapid.
It is very rapid. So sometimes you can't plan for things. So let's talk about the time issue first. Yeah. Sometimes locations get presented to you. And of course, I forgot to mention Le Parc, which we opened in South Africa, which is an amazing brand and one of the brands that I'm most proud of. But sometimes you can plan all you like, and then everything just happens at the same time. So we've been presented with locations that require us to pivot a little bit and create new brands. Nala, for example, was supposed to open 2 years ago, but COVID hit, and then we had some building permit issues. So it's just happened that it's opening at the same time as the rest. So that's one aspect of it. Then there's opportunity. So if you get a great opportunity, yes, the timing might not be right, but you're going to have to buckle down and just go for it. Otherwise, you're going to lose that opportunity. So that answers the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question, the first part of the question that you asked me around, where do I get these ideas from? I am a creative. The things that I love are interiors, specifically chairs. I've got a love affair with chairs. I have an obsession with food and people. So what I have been doing slowly but steadily is building a team around me that are able to take away the work that I'm not as passionate about, which is corporate work, P&Ls, balance sheets, negotiating with landlords, all of the things that I don't really love to do. And we've gone from a team of 8 people to 30, and I've recently appointed a COO to really take a lot of pressure from me and unburden me. But I suppose ideas, I am a creative. I love creating things, and I have an eye for, please God, it continues, an eye for identifying gaps in the market. And I love detail. Like we're building this new restaurant on the beach, Bungalow 34, and I have labored over the plate choice and the crockery choice, and I've flown stuff in from all over the world to make sure that the plates that we're serving our meals on are just absolutely perfect and fit the theme of the restaurant. So, yeah, I think that's it. But I will say that in terms of new brands, we are not going to develop any more. We've drawn a line in the sand now. We've said we've got Tasha's, which is amazing. And of course, those will continue to open. Flamingo Room, there'll be 1, 2, 3 very soon. So Flamingo Room Dubai, Flamingo Room Abu Dhabi, Flamingo Room Saudi, potentially a Flamingo Room in the UK, we hope. And Flamingo Room and Saudi Arabia. So 4 locations. And then the idea is to take all of the brands that we've developed and try and open a couple of them before we go and start creating new brands. I need to be reined in, because if people came to me for consulting and said, come up with a X brand, I'd love to do it. Maybe one day when I've retired, I'll do that. I'll consult.
And so maybe a question on that. So are you doing this with a partner or a franchisee, or how is this being structured?
We have different models. So South Africa is 90% franchised, and my brother and myself and a young lady called Melissa own 3 of our restaurants. And in fact, the one in Bedfordview is a family business owned by myself, my brother, my aunt. So that's sort of a hybrid model. In Dubai, we are both franchisor and franchisee. And in the UK, we will be both franchisor and franchisee. And we have investors who invest in the locations with us, and we are in partnership with them. So and that works really well for us because I get to control everything. Sometimes franchising can be challenging. I'm lucky in South Africa because I have unbelievable franchisees, and even if we don't see eye to eye on some things, they are aligned with me. They have believed in my dream. Most of my franchisees have been with me from the beginning.
Sure.
But not always easy because, if a guy needs to renovate his store, then you have to go through a whole process. When you own your own restaurants, if you feel like changing the cushions every second week, then you do.
You can. Yeah.
You can.
And I'd love to delve into this a bit, because as you expand and grow, I mean, just you're stretched in every single direction, and the importance of who you choose as a partner, as a franchisee, as someone to look over the books and give you more times to focus on the things that give you passion or I guess fulfill your passion, it becomes more and more important. How do you go about that process?
Listen, you're never going to know 100%, and it's always going to be a bit of trial and error. I mean, we appointed 1 or 2 people 2 months ago that just didn't work out, and we had to change them. I'm lucky that the guys who look after the numbers have been with me for ages. So that's, I think, is really important, that you find trustworthy people who are managing your money. And of course, you need to have trustworthy people who are managing all aspects of the business. But again, I've got a core team that's been with me for a very, very long time, who are then able to take the culture and imbue it into the rest of the new joiners that come. But it's always going to be trial and error. Some people work out, some people don't. And I think as you get bigger, that's just par for the course. You're never going to get it 100% right, because you can interview someone and you think they're going to be amazing, and then there's no culture fit, or they're lazy, or whatever the case may be. It just doesn't work out. They don't like you, you don't like them, and then you got to move on.
And having had so much success at this point where it feels like, I don't know if it's a next chapter, if it's a whole another book that's being written at this point.
It certainly is.
Is it a sense of excitement? Is it a sense of fear? Is it a mixture of both? Like I almost can liken this to a sprinter standing at the starting blocks, waiting for the starting gun to go off. What's the feeling when you think about what's to come over the next 2 and 3 years?
More fear than excitement, I can tell
Really,
you that.
eh?
Yeah. Because it doesn't matter how many restaurants you open, you're always nervous. You're always scared that you've chosen the wrong location. Have you got the right team? Are people going to enjoy the menu? Is the music going to be right? I mean, there are so many variables. And for me, all of these milestones, I've always said at certain milestones, okay, we were just building when we came to Dubai, I said, okay, South Africa, we were building the foundation. Now we're in Dubai. Now we've opened in Dubai and we've got our 8 restaurants. We're now embarking on other countries and other regions and with new concepts. Now I'm saying, okay, Dubai and South Africa were just the foundations. Now we're really starting our business. So I think every milestone normally feels like you're starting from the beginning. I mean, I'm petrified. I'll tell you why. Because while you're growing, you can't forget about what you've built and you need to look after what you got. So to open restaurants, okay, it's tough, it's difficult, and there's a lot of labor that goes into it. But can we open restaurants? We've proved we can open restaurants. Yes, no problem. It's what's happening with the existing business. Innovating on the existing business, looking after your staff in the existing business, making sure your customers are happy. All of those good things. That's what keeps me up at night. Is how are we going to do both? And I'm hoping that, and I think I've backed the right jockey. Is that our new COO is really going to be able to assist in that regard.
And I mean, I have no doubt. I mean, just hearing how you cultivate people and get them running in the right direction and in the same direction is amazing. Going back to your new concepts, yes. And I'm going to put you in a hard position here by asking you to pick one. But out of all the new ones, which one are you most excited about, and why?
Oh, wow, that is really tough. Well, I'm going to evade the question and I'm going to tell you about the various ones for various reasons.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm extremely excited about African Lounge. We have a fantastic partner in Saudi Arabia. It is the first time that we're going into very high-end pastries. And I think the experience for Saudi Arabia is going to be completely unique. As you know, there's no bars and no alcohol allowed. And I think a bit of this moody environment, to be able to sit in this tented environment with this lush high tea, I think is going to be incredible. It's a huge challenge for us because we never worked with such a small internal space with such intricate type of serving, because a high tea is a whole occasion, it's a series of things that have to happen. So I'm very excited about that. Of course, I'm excited about Bungalow 34 because it's on the beach, unbelievable view, and it's going to have complete nostalgia. I'm an old school restaurateur, so going to be completely nostalgic. The 50s, 60s, 70s Riviera of Greece, France, and Italy with that very retro feeling. Can't wait for that. And then I'm very, very excited about Nala because I think that it's time for the markets and for customers to be able to enjoy something fast that's delicious and it's been prepared on order. They haven't had to wait hours for it. I think if we crack this prototype, we're going to have gold. I think it's going to be amazing.
What are some of the challenges with that? Made to order but fast food.
So made to order but fast food means that you really got to be clever with the dishes that you're choosing. You got to treat your product a little bit differently. So let's say you got a thick chicken breast that you would normally serve at Tasha's, and people are prepared to wait 15 minutes for that fresh breast to get grilled. Now we've got to take that breast and slice it and give a thinner cut, but it's going to be a couple of slices or more sitting on the grill, so quicker turnaround. Where prep needs to happen, it's going to have to be fast and smarter preparation methods. The style of ordering is gonna affect. So for the first time, because I hate technology and I hate social media, I'll probably get shot at dawn by saying this. The lady who's our brand strategist is going to kill me, but it's true. I don't like social media. I don't have it. I don't even have my own Instagram, and I don't follow myself either. I have a team who does it, and every now and again I'll go check what they've posted. So for the first time ever, we're going to bring a lot of technology into the ordering system. So that's going to be a big challenge for us, or challenge in terms of customer experience to make sure we got that speed. That affects it as well. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to menu engineering.
That sounds like a massive feat. I'm very excited to see.
It's going to be. Listen, what's nice about it is that it's happening in our academy, and we are not under pressure from anyone. We are already paying rent, so there's not this pressure to make sure that we're doing a turnover, to get a return, to make sure we can afford the rent. It's the first time that I'm going to have the indulgence to really tweak, play, and have fun with the brand. The branding is unbelievable. We have two young ladies who own a company called AM Branding, who have actually done all our branding from the day we started.
Sure.
So we're talking about 17 years worth of branding for every single brand, and they do all of the social media. I think that what they've done with Nala is absolutely spectacular, award-winning branding.
And looking into the future for Nala, what's the goal? 5 years from now, how many are you looking at it being proliferated across the Middle East? The world. 300. That's amazing. And when I had a question for you, and I'll ask it now rather than at the end, but is there a point where you have in the sand where you say, okay, if I get here, this is when I stop? This is when I take my foot off the gas? Or is it a case of...
Someone else asked me that earlier. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see into the future. And every now and again, when I get very tired, I think another 2 years and it's over and I don't care and that's it. But the truth is I'm not ready yet. So I can't say. For as long as I'm loving what I'm doing, and people are benefiting from our actions as a group and we are making customers happy, then I'm not going anywhere just yet.
And what for you is the most satisfying part? Is it thinking of a concept and then watching how it successfully lands? Is it seeing empty plates? Is it a combination? What are the one, two, or three things that really
so many? Like I'll give you an example. When we built our Greek restaurant, I've really so much love and passion went into it because my roots and my heritage are Greek. And we opened this restaurant, and one of my friends said, when you're walking around this place, when I'm walking around, it's as if I'm on another planet because I just love it so much. It feels ethereal and I just adore it. And one day I thought, what is it about this whole feeling? And it's because seeing the dream and the effort and the energy come to fruition, and then customers actually enjoying the food and smiles on people's faces, and the staff coming together and the music just being perfect. I mean, when all of that comes together, it's like the stars are aligned. It's like you're walking on air. If you're not a restaurateur, you're obviously not going to understand. You think I'm a crazy lady, but it really is otherworldly and feels incredible. So much so that you get addicted to the feeling.
I can imagine. I mean, just through the process of starting this podcast, after a while, at some point, you're like, oh, jeepers, I actually am a podcaster. And it's like, exactly. I've built a concept from scratch and taken it. Yeah, I'm just chatting to people, but there's something about, oh, flip, I've started something that is quite addictive. And now when you have something that is quite tangible in its roots, in a physical restaurant with people sitting there enjoying the food that you've curated with the music playing, I can imagine why after opening 1 or 10, there's still a desire to keep opening more.
100%. And don't forget that Tasha's is not cookie cutter, hey? So each one is unique and different. So I get to have fun with the design for each one, and we get to have fun with the menus for each one. And that was by design. I didn't want to have a cookie cutter model. I wanted to be the anti-franchise franchise. So each one is still super exciting.
Natasha, I can tell you, my friends are going to have the best laugh when they find out that I have you on the podcast, because they know how much I love Tasha.
Cool.
The running joke was that I was solely responsible for the same store growth in your
which store?
The branch in, I don't know how, I've literally just blanked on
Rosebank?
Not Rosebank. It's
Morningside.
I don't know how I forgot Morningside.
Yeah,
I was there week in, week out. I kid you not.
George's store, one of our best franchisees, a real foodie.
So great. I mean, it's, so friends are going to be excited.
Thank you for the support. Thank you.
Continuing. Now I live very close to the Hyde Park one, so
okay, good.
I'm always there.
Thank you.
And it's not just me, right? A lot of restaurateurs in South Africa look to Tashas and they want to be like you. And my question is, who do you look at from a global scale in the restaurant business?
So many people. I think there's restaurateurs that are doing fantastic jobs, and big food groups that are doing unbelievable jobs. In terms of celebrity chefs, one of my all-time favorites is Neil Perry from Australia. I think he's got amazing restaurants and unbelievable cookbooks. Hell of a humble human being. I love Donna Hay, although she's not a restaurateur, an unbelievable food stylist and foodie. Groups that I look up to, the guys from Zuma Group. I don't know if you know them, Japanese restaurant here in Dubai. And they also own a restaurant called Le Petit Maison, also fantastic restaurateurs. So there are many that I really look up to.
And so with that, I know your dad is a restaurateur himself.
Was, yeah.
And your brother is your partner.
Correct.
Talk to me about working with family and the impact it's had, because it's one thing is you've learned from family, you've built with family. The other thing is
you each other. I said they need to do a reality TV show on me and my brother, or my brother and I, because we got a love-hate. We argue about a lot, but at the end of the day, it's worked. Sava's unbelievable at operations. He likes to be hands-on and on the ground. He's got a fantastic eye for detail. Also studied interior design, so he puts a lot of input into that. But yes, it is a fiery.
I'm sure you wouldn't have it any other way, though.
I promise you, if they did a reality show on my brother and I, we would get millions of viewers, because people would be in shock with the way we fight.
Natasha, do you ever reflect back or just even look at the impact you've had in the South African market? I know it's a bit of an odd question, because people don't generally feel abashed when asked, like, have you considered the impact you've had on the industry?
Hardly ever, because I think one of the things that drives me is that I always think it's not good enough, that I always think we can do better, that I always think that we need to be pushing ourselves more. And I've got this whip that, keep cracking the whip. But I suppose maybe in interviews like this, it's a time to reflect and think about what's happened. So this is, I suppose, is the only time and the only opportunities that I get to think about what we've done, because the rest of the time I'm literally on the go and looking at the next goal, or thinking about the business that we've got, but certainly not. I think that maybe leaders find it difficult to stop and smell the roses, and founders, because they're continually pushing themselves. So not easy.
I mean, when I think of Tasha's, I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've gone to places and the question's like, oh, what's it like? They're like, oh, it's like Tasha's, but X. Or it's similar to Tasha's, but Y. You have become synonymous with a look, a feel, a type of food in South Africa. And I don't think anyone was saying anything. It was like X, or it was like Tasha's before that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've noticed it over time. When did you notice it? And what's that feeling like when you realize that, people are modeling their restaurants and their vibe and their feel over what I've created?
I would say it sort of started happening after store number 4. So it was Athol, Bedford, Melrose, Morningside, in that order. And I think after Morningside, the penny dropped, and my brother and I said, well, listen, we really have got something here. I mean, I suppose also when Famous Brands approached us, Kevin approached us, and you must remember that was 17. It was about 14 years ago when they approached us. I'm not going to give away my age, but I was young, and to get approached by a listed company, then you realize actually you're a player and you have made an impact on the market. I certainly think that we were the pioneers. I think there's a lot of people in South Africa doing great things in daytime eating now. We never used to have a lot of competition. We certainly do have competition now, not specifically with a chain of people, but more mom and pop stores that are doing some amazing stuff. But yeah, I'd say after store number 4, we realized actually we've got something. And the fact that I'm on these shows and being interviewed by people means that we've done something right.
No, I mean, it's I think we're hard pressed to find a place as loved as Tasha's.
Thank you. You've been very complimentary. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
To be honest, I'm a massive fan. So
you've got to come visit me in Dubai, or as soon as I open in the UK, we've got to stay in touch. Get my details.
Absolutely, I'll be there the moment it opens, and whenever I'm in Dubai, I'll definitely come and visit. And what's great is I'm going to have multiple different stores to come and visit, because
exactly, and different concepts.
And I think I'd be remiss not to talk about famous brands for a bit.
Yes,
and what's great is you've had you were bought. 51% of Tasha's was bought by famous brands.
Correct.
You've subsequently bought it back, and it's one of the happier stories where it was all on good terms.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some of the learnings, because what's great as I hear the story is you're getting into such a scale that you are forced to become more corporatized as time goes on. What are some of the learnings?
So that's a delicate balance. And I think separating out the creative process from all the corporate governance that is needed in a business of our size, or a business that we're becoming, is important. And I think famous brands certainly helped lay those foundations. They taught us a lot in terms of being administratively correct, in terms of collection of royalties, franchise agreements, lease negotiations, business plans, putting in high executive flywheels, as Kevin calls it. And I think those things are important. If you don't have them, at the end of the day, it is the foundation. So you can have all of these great ideas and they can be amazing, but if you don't have this backbone of admin and a level of being corporate, and I hate that word, but yes, you do need it, then it will fall over, because people need to be held accountable. You need KPIs, you need a business plan, you need budgets. Otherwise, you're not going to have a business. So that was a lot of learnings from that. And, we did our deal 2 years ago. We've had our independence, and a lot's happened since then. And now we're saying, right, we're on this growth trajectory, and we need to get our house in order. We need to make sure that all of those processes that we learned have been cast in stone and improved on. So that's really important.
Would you ever sell a stake again?
No, not now. Certainly not. I mean, maybe if we got big enough and I wanted to. I read that article about that tech guy. I mean, he retired. What was it? 68 billion or something ridiculous. I don't know what. And he's lying on a beach somewhere. He said, "Hasta la vista. Thank you. Cheers, guys. I'm out of here." I mean, that's big money. But no, I'm not ready to. I just bought it back.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near that.
And let's look and reflect a bit more on you and your journey. When you look back, what about your journey are you most proud of?
So certain milestones, opening that first Tasha's was a milestone. Doing the deal with Famous Brands was a milestone. Buying my business back from Famous Brands was a milestone. Opening in the UAE and being successful, a milestone. If I have to say, in my humanity, what's made me most proud is all the people that we've affected and all the people that we employ. That would be that's what I'm most proud of. I mean, then there's other things that are driven by ego, like being busy and all of your beautiful restaurants and the great food you serve. But if you're talking to the impact that you've made as a human being, definitely it's got to be the staff. No doubt.
That's a wonderful answer.
No doubt.
And sorry, I'm taking us in a completely different direction now.
Sorry.
But in terms of the restaurant, has there ever been, whether it's a design choice or a menu item that you thought was going to be a massive hit, and it turns out it wasn't? And conversely, something where you thought, I'm just going to put on the menu, but I don't really care for it, and it ended up being one of the most popular things.
Yeah, definitely. We don't get it right all the time. I certainly don't get it right all the time. I'll give you the story of the Dr. Pawpaw, which now the whole of South Africa has on their menu, pawpaw with yogurt and almond. So Malpa from AM Branding, who also happens to be my best friend and sits on our menu committee, says to me, listen, we've got to put this thing on the menu. We've got to put pawpaw with yogurt and almonds and a bit of honey. She said, what? I said, are you joking? I said, people are going to make that at their home. Who's going to come into a restaurant to pay for a half a pawpaw with some yogurt on top of it? I'll just make it from my kitchen. She said, please, let's put it on. Boy, was I wrong. I think we depleted the whole pawpaws in South Africa. And since then, every cafe in South Africa has got pawpaw, yogurt, almonds, and honey on their menu. So I was definitely wrong with that one. I should have. Thank God she didn't negotiate a royalty because.
Well, now I know what I'm going to try the next time I'm at a store.
Pay her, so I was dead wrong about that. And then, some things that I thought would never work have worked. So, I mean, Avli is another example. We put on a thing called the suvla, which is slow cooked meat. We invested hundreds of thousands of dirhams on the equipment, put it in, and it didn't work. It didn't work operationally, and customers weren't enjoying the product, even though it's close to my Greek heritage and it's food that we eat every weekend. People here just didn't enjoy it. So, I mean, we're not going to get it right all the time. Doesn't matter how many restaurants you open, unless you're stamping out a product that's trial and tested and you're going to copycat it all the time, like a burger. Okay, easy. Not difficult to do. But when you're doing all of these crazy and creative things, we're going to be doing these unbelievable pizzets on the beach at Bungalow 34, and we've got these retro-looking pizza ovens. Is it going to work? Don't know. We like to think we'll get 80% right, and 20% will be an experiment.
And I guess the success is in not taking that failure to heart and learning and growing and really understanding what your customers appreciate and melding that with excellent the key
food. For all of the self-starters that are listening to your podcast, number one thing above everything else is failing and getting up again. If you've got a bad idea and you failed, what will determine your success is how you approach that and getting up the next day and just going for it. That's tenacity and grit. Gotta have grit. Or you ain't gonna make it. Because you're gonna fail. You're not perfect. No one's perfect. No one's a perfect restaurateur or a perfect podcaster or a perfect doctor or a perfect anything. Gotta have fire.
That's where the best learnings come from. If you're getting it right, you don't understand potentially where you could go wrong.
Exactly.
Now, Natasha, tell me, this question always causes conundrums because it involves time travel. Just ignore that piece. But if you were somehow stood next to 6-year-old Natasha, and you could tell her, what would you tell her to look forward to the most in the journey that's to come?
Sure. Well, I'd give her some advice, and I suppose it's a bit melancholic, but I'd tell her to spend more time with her family. It's one of my big regrets. I've lost both my folks. And because I'm super ambitious, I didn't spend enough time with them. My dad got sick at the age of 52, and it was sort of the main growth of Tashas in South Africa, and I regret not spending enough time with him. And then my mom died shortly after, so if I was sitting next to the 6-year-old Tasha, I'd say, listen, don't forget that family is really important and you need to spend time with them, otherwise you're going to end up regretting it. And look forward to the most. Sure, there's so many look forward to. Look forward to opening that first store in Athol Square. Look forward to coming to Dubai and making a success. Look forward to your team growing. So much.
What about looking forward to 4 a.m. at Galaxy?
Definitely not. One of my closest and dearest friends who sadly passed away, Chris Kratoulis, who was I'm going to actually cry, who was a legend in the nightclub industry, and he was just unbelievable. And I always used to go to his nightclubs, and I opened my bar in Dubai, and he arrived in Dubai, and I said, Chris, you know what? You're going to sit next to me and we're going to have some whiskey for all the late nights that I had at your place. He says, yeah, you see, you wanted it. Now you got a bar. I said, well, I'm suffering. You got to be careful what you wish for.
No, and I think what you've mentioned is so poignant and powerful, because the common thing is people say that at the end of their career. You're in the midst of it, and to be able to reflect back and identify what's most important, I think is so important and so good to hear for anyone starting out on their journey.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And Natasha, last question. Now that you've been on the podcast, you understand what it's about.
Yeah.
Is there any self-starter that you know of that you would think it would be worthwhile for the listeners to hear their story?
Yeah, there's a young boy in Cape Town. His name is Nick Haralambos. He has just started a restaurant in Cape Town called Uzeri, and I've been mentoring him. And if you guys are ever in Cape Town, go and take a look at what he's doing there. That's an example of a self-starter who actually used to work for me in Dubai as a chef. And because he couldn't connect with the producers here, because obviously everything's flown in, he really wanted to go back to the Cape and be able to know where all of his ingredients came from. And he's just recently opened his restaurant. So proper self-starter.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. We'll definitely look out for him.
Cool.
Natasha, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
What an inspiring story. We're so excited to see everything that comes out of the Tashas Group. I have no doubt everything's going to be a smashing success.
I hope so.
And we'll be supporting you. Whichever store I can get to, I'll be supporting it. Same store.
I'm waiting for you to call me. Get my number from Joe.
I definitely will. Thank you so much.
Because I'm not going to give it to you on air, that's for sure.
That's absolutely fine.
Ciao.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Bye.